Hey guys, welcome to Muscle for Life. Today I want to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of lifting heavier weights with lower reps. Now when I say heavier weights and lower reps, I'm talking about heavier weights of 80 to 90% of your 1RM, and I'm talking about rep ranges of 5 to 10 reps. Okay, so these are weights that are going to push you to failure or close to failure in the 5 to 10 rep range without about 80 to 90% of your 1RM. So quite heavy weights, okay? These are obviously weights that are going to go and really challenge you, okay? In some senses, especially on your large compound movements, especially squats, are probably going to instill a little bit of fear in you. But these are obviously the sort of rep ranges and weight ranges that are really going to go and push you to build muscle, okay? So we're going to talk about advantages and disadvantages and why we do use heavier weights. Thanks, guys. So what are the advantages of using heavier weights and lower reps? Well, first of all, greater muscle recruitment earlier in the set. Okay, in other words, when you first start your set, okay, because you're using a weight that's close to your maximum weight, you're going to be recruiting the greater number of muscle fibers in order to go and lift that weight. Now, with the greater recruitment of fast twitch muscle fibers, okay, that means that we're going to be like stimulating muscle mass from earlier in the set, okay? And it means that we're going to be doing less reps, obviously, because we're now using a heavier weight and fatigue is going to come much quicker. Now, when I say less overall fatigue in point 3, I mean that neurally, you're not going to be as fatigued from doing heavier weights and lower reps. But from a muscle point perspective, you're going to actually fatigue the muscle quicker, okay? So less neural fatigue, but more actual muscle fiber fatigue. Now, a lot of people are going to argue that heavier weights and lower reps do actually go and create a lot of fatigue in the neural system. This is true if you do a large volume, but when we're doing less sets, we're going to induce less actual overall neural fatigue, and you don't get the same sort of soreness you do from high reps, okay? Now, because we're using heavier weights, we're going to have a greater strength building potential. And the reason that is because with greater muscle recruitment, that means more neural drive, which means that the muscles are obviously going to be recruited to the greatest extent and therefore greater hypertrophy advantage and greater strength advantage from doing this, okay? Okay, so now what are the disadvantages of heavier weights and lower reps? Well, there's obviously more chance of loss of exercise form because if you are using a heavier weight, you really have to concentrate on your form and make sure that you're keeping form throughout the whole set. So near the end of the set, there is potential for greater fatigue, and therefore because of that, greater chance of actual injury because you're losing form. So there is a greater chance of injury from using heavier weights, but the obvious advantage to that is there's greater muscle recruitment and greater stimulus of muscle growth, okay? So with the more weight that you're using, you're also going to get greater load on the joints and greater wear and tear. Now, obviously, when we're doing weight training and we're trying to put our maximum amount of muscle mass, okay, it is an endeavor that obviously sort of suits a younger person, and as we get older, there is going to be wear and tear on our joints already. But by doing heavier weights and lower reps, we are actually giving ourselves much more of a chance of building strength. So therefore, the disadvantages of injury are made up by the fact that we're actually creating greater chance of muscle growth. Okay, guys, so what's the conclusion to all this? Basically, building muscle is about maximum stimulation. To maximize stimulation, we obviously need to go and stimulate the fast twitch fibers and fatigue the fast twitch fibers. And to do that, we need to use the maximum amount of weight and the minimum number of reps, okay? So using 5 to 10 rep range with greater amounts of weight, 80 to 90% of our 1RM is probably the most beneficial to build muscle mass. Now, to get that maximum recruitment of muscle fibers, as I've already said, you need a higher weight, okay? And to do it earlier in the set, the greater the weight, the better. Now, also you've got to be aware that if we're sort of looking at 1 to 4 reps, that's probably a little bit low. So 5 and above is probably the best rep range. Every now and then doing 3 rep sets, not such a bad thing, but generally in the overall scheme of things, 5 to 10 rep range is that sort of ultimate, difference between we're using maximum stimulation by using enough weight, but we're also getting fatigue in the fast twitch muscle fibers, okay? Now, the good thing about using the maximum amount of weight and the minimum number of reps is that we also get greater fatigue from every set because we're fatigued the fast twitch muscle fibers, which fatigue quite quickly. So we don't need as many sets. So we should be using the minimum number of sets in order to create the maximum stimulation, okay? I like to do about 2 sets per exercise, and anywhere from about 3 to 6 exercises per body part, depending on whether it's a large one or a small body part, okay? But generally speaking, I'm trying to minimize the number of sets I do and maximize the stimulation per set, okay? So really, the advantage is that you're going to stimulate more muscle fibers. The disadvantage is potential for injury. So watch your form, okay? Make sure you warm up correctly, and obviously make sure that you give yourself enough rest between workouts and you don't do too many sets, and you minimize the amount of obviously wear and tear on the joints, but maximize the stimulation. Thanks guys for listening. Leave your comments, leave a like, and share this to your friends, okay? Just for the algorithm. Thank you guys.